Hello again. In the first part of our course, we covered core action values 1 through 6 about laying a solid foundation of personal character strength. Now we're going to talk about core action values 7 through 12, beginning today with core action value number 7, on how do you take effective action? How do you get things done? How do you make a difference in your corner of the world? And core action value number 7 is purpose, having a sense of purpose in your life. Remember when I talked about the statue, the self-made man, statue of a man holding a hammer in one hand and a chisel in the other, and he's carving himself out of a big piece of stone? The hammer and the chisel that you use to carve you, more than anything, is the work that you choose to do. Not just on your job, the work you choose to do in the rest of your life, and how you choose to do that work. And having an overarching sense of purpose helps you do that work really more joyfully and more effectively. Khalil Gibran, the poet who wrote the book The Prophet, said, "Work is love made visible." When you have a sense of purpose, it's much easier to do your work with love, to put love into your work. Another poet, McZen, said, "Someone with a job is never secure. Someone with a calling is never unemployed." So let's start by looking at 3 words that we sometimes use interchangeably, but they're really different things. Calling, mission, and purpose. Here's my take on it. A calling is something you're born with or you develop early on. Mozart had a calling to be a musician almost from the day he was born. A mission is something you do, get done, mission accomplished, you move on. And you can have more than one mission at any given time. Purpose is the umbrella. It is the overarching, giving you the sense of direction in your life. It covers all of the missions. If you have a sense of calling, it's in there too. You may have read Rick Warren's book, A Purpose-Driven Life. And there's some things in the book I don't agree with, although I agree with most of what he says. Especially the first sentence, it's not about you. And the more you can have a sense of purpose that is bigger than just dying with the most toys, making the most money, having the highest status, the happier you're going to be. And paradoxically, over the long term, the more successful you're going to be. So let's look at the 4 cornerstones. And here are some of the things that I hope you'll take away with you. Cornerstone number 1 is aspiration. And by the way, for the nurses in the audience, I don't mean the clinical variety of choking aspiration. I mean aspiring to something bigger. Without aspiration, without ambition, we would still be out in the woods hunting and gathering. It's aspiration that built the schools and the cities and the factories and the computers that we use, aspiring to something more than what we have. In today's world, aspiration, the ability to dream, the ability to have ambition, to work hard toward a bigger goal is more important than ever, because the typical old 8-to-5 job, 40 years on the job, retire with a gold watch, those days are going away. And more, we ourselves are going to have to take responsibility for our futures. You know, Mary Kay Ash used to give her beauty consultants a pin, and it was a pin of a bumblebee. Why a bumblebee? Why not a lion or an eagle or some, inspiring creature? Because according to aerodynamic engineering theory, a bumblebee should not be able to fly. The wings are too little for that big body. And Mary Kay would say, don't you ever tell a bumblebee that she can't fly, and don't you ever let anybody tell you that you can't fly. And part of internalizing aspiration as part of the value of purpose is inoculating yourself from the people who want to steal your dreams, from the people who want you to be just like them, average, mediocre, the people who tell you you're not good enough, that you can't do it. And you've got to put on that Teflon raincoat and ignore the people who want to pour cold water on your parade. One more thing about aspiration, though. I think it's important to have big dreams. I think it's important to aspire to a lot of helping other people, helping yourself. But don't outrun your headlights. Don't let your ambition outrun your abilities. You may have to go back to school. You may have to work harder at things. There's no free lunch. There's no overnight success. So while it's important to dream big, it's also important to have the patience to work hard over a long period of time to achieve that dream. And that gets me to the second cornerstone, which is intentionality. So 3 frogs are sitting on a tree. One of them decides to jump in the water. Now how many frogs are on the tree? Still 3. Just deciding to do something doesn't get it done, does it? You have to be committed. You have to be intentional about doing the work. You've heard what Yoda had to say about it. Do or do not. There is no try. And you know, it's important to try. It's important to be willing to fail. But if you use trying as an excuse, well, I tried, at least I tried, as opposed to being committed. I tried that, it didn't work, so I'm going to try something else, and I'm not going to quit trying until it works. That is being intentional. More than 30 years ago, Tom Peters and Bob Waterman wrote the first best-selling business book called In Search of Excellence. They defined 8 characteristics of what they described as excellent companies. Today, Tom Peters says really only one of those 8 qualities has stood the test of time, and that is having a bias for action. And when you're intentional about getting things done, you don't sit around, you don't wait around, you don't wait for the cavalry to come do the job for you. You are committed to doing the work and getting it done. So here are 2 things that can help you be more intentional in your life. First, read any book on how to set and achieve goals, and you'll see lots of different ideas about how to motivate yourself, how to get help. But every single book I've ever read, at least, on how to set and achieve big goals says the same thing: write them down. Write down your goals as clearly as you can. Better yet, write them down every day. Better yet, write them down every night before you go to bed, so that overnight they're sort of percolating up there in your brain. How can I achieve getting out of debt? How can I achieve starting my business? How can I go back to school? How can I, whatever your dream is, write it down. Write it down several times a day. Put it in a little card and put it in your wallet. Put it in your breast pocket. Put it on a t-shirt underneath your whatever costume you wear to work, as a constant reminder of what your goal is. The second practical suggestion is this: develop for yourself habits and rituals that help you stay focused on your job. And we'll talk a little bit more about this in later modules, but just for now, having a set of rituals helps you get focused on the work, helps you get started. Steve Pressfield, the writer, says, what professionals know that amateurs don't know is that writing's not hard. What's hard is sitting down and getting started to write. And Steve himself has a whole series of rituals before he gets started in the morning. And by the time he's gone through the rituals, set up his desk just the right way, said his prayer, sat down and started writing, he's in the right frame of mind. And having little rituals can help you be more intentional about getting your work done. The first 2 cornerstones, aspiration, intentionality, they're really focused on you, getting your work done, having a bigger sense of purpose for yourself. The third cornerstone, we start to look out in the broader world, and that is selflessness. Having a goal that is bigger than just you. Being committed to a purpose. Again, as Rick Warren said, it's not about you. Having a purpose that's bigger than you. For one thing, selflessness, ironically enough, is the foundation of teamwork. You've probably heard there's no I in team, but there really is. The I in team is you. And if you can set your ego aside, set your own personal self-interest aside, and work with a team in a more selfless way, you're going to be a much more effective team member. You're going to be much happier, and long-term, you're going to be much more successful. And one of the great heroes in the world of business is Ray Kroc, founder of McDonald's. He was also a tremendous role model of selflessness. I mean, here you got a guy, 54 years old. He's driving around the country selling milkshake machines. He hears about this store in Southern California that buys milkshake machines 8 at a time. He says, I got to see this place. He drives into the parking lot of McDonald's and falls in love, literally. And he talks the McDonald's brothers into selling him the store, and he turns it into a franchise. Ray Kroc went for almost 10 years without drawing a paycheck. He continued selling milkshake machines to make his living. Why? Because every dime went back into helping his franchisees be more successful. And toward the end of his life, when he died at the age of 84, he was one of the world's richest men. He had the world's biggest yacht. And when people asked him, what are you most proud of all the things you've done? He could have said those things. I'm at 54 years old, I was a salesman. Now I'm a wealthy man. I have a big yacht. He could have said, I invented the fast food industry, largely true. He could have said, I made the best French fries in the world. I think that's true. He didn't say any of those things. You know what he said? He said, I am proudest of the fact that I've helped more people achieve their dreams of financial independence than anyone who's ever lived before me. And that's true. Ray Kroc was responsible for more people becoming millionaires than anyone who had ever lived up until that time. And his commitment to their success is what fueled his success. I have a sign in my office, and years ago I wrote a book called Never Fear, Never Quit. It's a little fictional story about courage and perseverance. And one of the characters in the book is named Rafe. And I think of this as Rafe's Law because he said, whatever you need in life, the best way for you to get it is to help somebody else get it who needs it more than you do. You know, when I've worked with people who are out of work, I always advise them, spend 4 days a week working on getting yourself a job, but then spend 1 day a week volunteering to help other people who are out of work, help them get jobs. And I'm pretty sure that someday you'll look back and say, you know, the 1 day I spent helping other people, being selfless, was the day that was most helpful to me in my own career. And I've actually heard back from a couple of people now who have said, that's what's happened. You know, I helped somebody else get a job. A few years later, I lost my job. I started networking. And the person I helped was instrumental in helping me get my new job. Back to Mary Kay and her pins. She had another pin. It was 2 shovels crossed like this, a big one and a little one. And she said, the little shovel is what you use to shovel out of your life through charity, through helping other people, things we'll talk about with service. The big shovel is what God uses to shovel stuff back into your life. And the faster you shovel, the faster it comes back in. You can never out-shovel what the universe sends back to you. When selflessness becomes a frame of mind, when it becomes part of your value set, I'm convinced that you'll find the universe, however you define that, responds by pouring back in faster than you can pour out. And the 4th cornerstone of purpose is balance. And you know, you think of trying to balance your life and your work. And actually, if I were redoing the course today, I might think a little differently about it because I've been thinking about what Jim Autry, who's a writer on leadership, said. He was a publishing executive for most of his career. Now he's retired from that, and now he's a writer and a speaker on leadership. And he said, I spent my entire career asking this question: how do I balance my life and my work? And he said, now I realize that's probably the wrong question. The right question is, how do I integrate my life and my work? Pretty good question. You know, how can you, instead of trying to have these 2 separate boxes, how can you try to bring those things together? You know, I love the idea of bring a child to work day. It's a very simple way of trying to integrate your life and your work. You know, try to get your kids involved in what you do. How can you not have this almost sort of schizophrenic dichotomy, but yet find a sense of bringing them together instead? One other thing about balance. Many of us get caught in what psychologists call double bind situations, a lose-lose situation. And here's a classic example. You come home at the end of the day, you got your briefcase full of work. You sit down at the desk, you pull out your work, the kids are out in the backyard playing. You feel guilty. So you finally shut off the computer, you go out in the backyard, you start playing with the kids. Now what do you feel? Guilty because all the work's sitting there. And what you've done is you've put yourself in this lose-lose situation, and you've got to give yourself permission to let go of whatever it is you're not doing so you can focus on what you are doing. And a great strategy for how do you achieve that balance, or how do you do more in your life, comes from Jim Collins, the business writer who wrote Good to Great and Built to Last and other books. And he said, great companies do not give in to the tyranny of or. Well, we can have high quality or low cost, but not both. We can have high productivity or high morale, but not both. There has to be a trade-off. And he says, great companies don't give in to that. You know, Southwest Airlines has the highest productivity and the highest morale in the airline industry. That's what great companies do. So a question is, how can you apply that principle in your life to achieve balance and to get more done? So for example, I can have fun now, Or I can be responsible and save for my retirement, but not both. How do you say, I'm going to have fun today, but I'm also going to be responsible and save for my retirement? So, for example, instead of spending $10,000 on a vacation to Las Vegas or Disney, you might say, well, let's just go to the national parks. You spend a whole lot less money and you put what you save into your retirement account. And you know what? You'll probably look back, and your kids, if you have kids, will probably look back on a trip to Grand Canyon or Yosemite with greater fondness than a trip to Vegas or Orlando anyway. That is going from or to and. Final thought. Stephen Covey, author of The 7 Habits, said you cannot manage time. And he's right. You can't manage time. He said you can only manage your priorities. And the only choice, as J.R.R. Tolkien said, all we have to do is to decide what to do with the time that is given to us. And that is having that sense of priority that goes into balancing. So let me wrap up with a homework assignment, if you will, 2 of them actually. First, let me challenge you to write for yourself a purpose statement. What is your purpose here on earth? Give yourself a lot of time. You're not going to write it in stone. What's your purpose on earth? Write something that is broad enough to cover what you do for a living, but also to cover what you do in the rest of your life, your family life, your work with the community, with your church, to cover your hobbies. You know, you may have something as simple as, my purpose in life is to bring joy to other people. Working on my own purpose statement has been such a life-changing experience for me, because it's very simple. My purpose in life is helping other people achieve their goals and dreams by living their values, and through that process, helping organizations create a culture of ownership. And that's something I can apply in my personal life. You know, if I can help a friend write a book, if I can help my kids be more successful in what their goals are, in my work with organizations, if I can help you achieve your goals, help your organization have a more positive, more productive culture, I'm living my purpose. And one other suggestion. I am often called a motivational speaker. And I know and you know that's an oxymoron. 2 words that really don't go together. You don't speak motivation into another person. But let me ask you this. Who is the most effective motivational speaker in the whole world? And I would say it's the person that you see when you look in the mirror. If you can speak to yourself in a positive, affirming way, that has a greater impact than Zig Ziglar, Tony Robbins, Joe Tai, and everybody else put together. So here's the other suggestion I'd have for you. For 1 month, just start making a list of all the good things you know about yourself, things you've done in the past that you're proud of, the things that have made you who you are. And then one day when you're in a really sterling, fine mood, sit down and write it all down, and then write yourself a script, maybe a 20-minute script, as if you were talking to you when you're flying high, proud of what you've done, talking to you when you're down low and feeling bad. Get a little microphone and plug it into your computer. There's lots of software you can use to do this. And make yourself your own motivational CD. And when you drive to work in the morning, plug it into the car, into your CD player, put it on your iPod, whatever. You will hear you talking to you about what a wonderful person you are, about how committed you are to your purpose, about the things you have done in the past, and it will be a reminder that no matter how bad you feel today, no matter how challenging the world around you seems, no matter how dark you may feel like your environment is, at one time, you, the same you that's listening to that tape, felt like, I have what it takes. I've achieved a lot. I can achieve a lot more. All I have to do is stay focused on my purpose. All I have to do is not give in to the excuses and the negative self-talk. All I have to do is continue to aspire, be intentional, help other people, maintain a sense of balance, the 4 cornerstones of purpose, and I will achieve my goals and dreams. You're the best motivational speaker in the world when you're talking to you. Give it a try. It may sound silly, but don't write it off until you've tried it. I have that. I put it in my car. I play it once or twice a week. I've actually got it memorized now. I hope that you will too. That's purpose, having a sense of purpose in life. Some years ago, I was working with a client and in Colorado. And I was talking to the CEO. And I was there on a Friday, going to be there over the weekend. And the CEO said, "What are you going to do this weekend?" I said, "Well, I'm going to climb one of the 14ers, the mountains that are 14,000 feet or higher." And she looked at me quizzically and she said, "On purpose?" And yes, live your life on purpose. Do your work on purpose. Stay on purpose. And you'll be much happier and you'll be much more successful. Now, the next time we get together, we're going to talk about how do you take that purpose and on that sense of personal purpose, build what is your future vision. I'll see you then.